Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Life Talks. Today I have my number one guest. He's been on the most, my father. Thanks for joining me, Dad.
Hey, always a pleasure, Michael. Glad to be on.
So we started this laughing. Is that what's your saying here? Day by day?
Day by day, the only way to go. What do you say?
What do you
Day
mean
by
by
day
that? Day
makes it a
by
lot
day.
easier, right?
What's day by day?
Life, life unfolds day by day.
How do
It's a lot
most
easier to
people
deal with stuff when you look at it day by day, moment to moment, rather than projecting out, making a mountain out of a molehill.
is that what most people do?
Yeah, including myself. I did that for most of my life. Like big problems. And actually, the only problems that we experience is of our own making. Actually, we create our problem because problems don't exist. The universe didn't give us problems, right? When we came here, they didn't say here's a bunch of problems for you today. The problems are self-created. My set of problems is completely would be completely a different would be a different presentation to you. Let's say. You know what I'm trying to say? In other words,
Yeah, no, I
it's
got
all a
it.
matter of outlook. Yeah,
It's funny because it's just like it's so simple. Yet the mind, it's not easy for the mind to really comprehend. The
yeah.
mind
The
can't
mind
comprehend it.
complicates it. The mind complicates it, right? It really is very simple. All we're here to do is just live and let live. No, that's not good enough for the mind. The mind's got to control it all. So thereby we complicate things.
I've been reflecting on the idea. I've talked about this with you before, that neutrality is often disguised, apathy is often disguised as neutrality. Do you remember when I had spoken about that?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know the difference between when we're being apathetic and we're being truly neutral? Because that's one of the themes that's a common thing, like on this podcast. And moving in the future, I don't want to just speak with people who I agree with. I want to speak with people I really disagree with. And the ability to remain neutral, I think, is going to be a a key component that's going to be necessary versus apathy. I can just say nice things and I can avoid difficult topics, and just to keep the peace. And I think much of the time that's necessary. But if there's anything I learned over the past few years, it's important that people speak forward and that um your your words are the way you formulate words, the way you use your words can either destroy you or they can destroy or they can build. And it's a very fine line because, like you said, if I say I think of it often as if I'm speaking to myself when I was younger. Would I listen to me when I was younger? In that sense. So how do we, because the reason I bring this topic up is because I think there's a lot of people who are afraid to speak. I know even when I made this podcast, a lot of people weren't interested on coming on because, well, I might lose my job if I talk about certain things and the conversations you're having with different people. And I get it. It's not my place to judge other people where they're at in their life. But at the same time, I think these things are necessary. I think it's very easy to lose the idea that we have the First Amendment for a reason, not so we can just say whatever the hell we want to everybody. Just it's First Amendment because it's kind of like a childish. I'll say whatever I want because I can. Versus the First Amendment is so we can grow in the truth, in my view. So, how do we have these difficult conversations while at the same time allowing every person to have their own experience and come to see it as they, as they see it?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult question. Are you asking how do you make it more comfortable for the interviewee, or
I'm not even really speaking more just on my podcast, right? But just in general. Yeah, I mean, what would the higher self say, right? The higher self would just say, you just speak it forward. Stop thinking about what other people think.
yeah, yeah, that's right, because it's really, you know, it's their, it's actually their responsibility as to how they're going to receive what you have to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to take the responsibility of ourselves and the person that we're interviewing.
I guess the question it comes back to myself, right? Because there's still aspects of caring what other people think because of younger programming. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of that, right? And I know that our highest self doesn't want to be liked. It doesn't need to be liked, rather. Um, but that part is still dying. I'm not enlightened, right? I'm still working on it myself, and I catch myself in those moments. Um, the awareness is greater than the need to be liked, at my point in my human experience. I don't need to be liked. But there's those moments where that mind creeps in and it wants to, um, specifically to tie this back into the original question is to have those conversations with people, you know, it's the same thing that Christ dealt with, right? The ability to speak the truth and not the ability to speak the truth in a way that is it's kind, but it's also honest in a sense. There's a wisdom behind how you say certain things, right? Turn on Fox News versus NBC, right? That's the chaos that's going on in the world. So how do we articulate those deeper truths?
Again, I think it's like trying to develop your muscles, you physically. It's like what comes to my mind is um, when we want to be assertive, we want to say something because um, we were injured by what somebody said or did. So we want to step up and we want to be assertive, but we are reluctant to be assertive because we're afraid that the other person is going to take it the wrong way. So we may very well not say anything, or if we do, we may say it in the wrong way. So it comes down to practice and letting go and understanding the differences in responsibility. So if I need to be assertive because you said something that offended me, I have to keep in mind that as long as I speak my truth, that the offense or non-offense is on the other person. That's a hard lesson. And that's why it's difficult for people to be assertive, for example, because people are afraid that they're going to wind up in a um, in a battle, and it's going to become an aggressive situation. So, like I said many times, it's dismissed, and that doesn't help a person to be able to stand on his or her feet and speak their truth. So it's
Yeah.
practice. It's practice, and it's risking. And you'll see when you go over the line, and when you don't go over the line, and you'll judge it. And the more you do it, the better you'll become at it. Better to make a mistake and apologize than not to again speak your truth.
Yeah.
Worse, it's worse not to speak your truth.
Yeah. I mean, what I hear there, what resonated was, yeah, it's the wisdom comes from the ability to make the mistake and say the wrong thing to learn how to say the right thing.
Yeah, right.
That to me is the core of the First Amendment as well, because we're all growing in that truth. And if we can't have the ability to say the wrong thing, and forget it. I mean, we're all just going to be making sounds in a few years.
Right.
Because, you know, you're going to make grunting sounds and then that's going to be offensive to somebody. And then,
And I don't think there's anything more important for an individual's growth than to speak your truth. Because where else would you go to find your truth? Somebody else, you know?
well, how do we balance our truth versus the truth? Because I think that's what the issue is too. Because growing up in my life, my truth of when I'm 33 years old versus 20 years old versus 15 years old is different. And everyone else's my truth is not in congruency with other people's truth. And I think that's really the biggest issue is that when my truth becomes non-compatible with your truth, I'd like to look at it. I think I've mentioned this to you before. It's like we're all yours. When you say my truth, yeah, that's like I look at it like your song. Your song is your life and how you perceive the world, your experiences. My song is going to be different than yours. That's my truth. But there is a the truth. In other words, there's a code of operating in the world that allows both of my truth and your truth to play together. The problem is when we have truths that are counter to that. And I think that's where like religion comes in and morality, and that's one of the topics that I'm very interested in. Not from a finger wagging place where a lot of it is imposed that way, but a we're collectively trying to figure out what's the game to play that everybody wins or as many people win as possible, and how do we define winning, right? So one way you could say if the purpose of my life is to make as much money as possible, regardless of other people, then that's not a sustainable game. But if the other game is just everybody just be poor and will be a communist society, that's not a game either, right? Because then there's so how do we? I guess to find a question this, what's the most effective way to communicate a higher truth? Is it just to live it? Is it how do we grow in truth? What's the best way to grow in? And is there a difference between the truth or my truth, or do you disagree with that?
I think it's a question of transcending to the higher self. When you've transcended to the higher self, you don't have to analyze it anymore. You don't have to figure out what is the truth, because you are the truth. That's really the tough part. How do we become conscious beings? If we become conscious beings, you don't have to worry about what the universal truth is, because you are the universal truth. There's
Yeah,
no
be the
figuring
change
it
you
out.
want to see in the world.
Yeah, exactly. You can't figure it out. I don't care if it's moral. You look for it in, where is it written morally? Where is it written religiously? Everybody has different interpretation philosophically. Everybody has different interpretations, and everybody's trying to figure life out. There's no figuring it out. It is what it is, and to be able to, like I said, transcend into the consciousness and become a spiritual being, to become primarily a spiritual being is where it's at. You wouldn't have to ask the question. That's how I see it. And that's what I'm working at, by the way, at 76. I'm still working at that. So I get the difficulty, very difficult to do that, because we are faced with challenges and conflicts every minute of our life.
Yeah, I mean, I think
The
it's easier.
right thing to do and the right thing to say. But there are moments when where you're in that flow, you're in that where it doesn't matter, it's right. Just everything just clicks and you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, so maybe that's a better way to go because I'm having difficulty in this talk trying to come up with questions because it's it really is a place of just being where it's a place of where you really don't care what other people think, but
Hmm.
at the same time you do care because you're not being mean, but you're also not being uh you're not being a people pleaser at the same time. You don't care. It's because other people aren't paying your bills, so you can't worry about how other people are going to see it. But I think this place to grow in love. I think of Ram Dass, who I've mentioned with you. He says the greatest thing, and I've mentioned to you multiple times, right? Love everybody and tell the truth.
Hmm.
Try it. You tell the truth to people, people don't want to hear it. That's the harder part, I think, because I the truth the truth hurts that which you are not, and the more that you're in alignment with it, um, who was it? It was there's this guy. Where's he from? The guy. He's from Analyze This. I think Bronx Tale. Who's the guy from A Bronx Tale? You know that guy I'm talking about, the actor, the mob guy,
Um,
Homer.
I can't think of his name.
So you know who I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, the Sonny. Is it Sonny in
Yeah.
the character? Yeah.
He had a thing where he says it's he goes if you can't bring people up. If people don't want to go up, they're not going up. So you have to basically be. But he says if you hang around people who want to go or who are down, they'll bring you down because negativity has more power than positivity. And I don't fully agree with it, but I understand the premise of what he's saying. It's hard to articulate it. If you hang around a bunch of negative people, you're going to become negative. So you got to get
Hmm.
the hell out.
Hmm.
In order to be truly positive, because it's very rare people who are truly positive. And I'm not talking about the fake bullshit positivity. Hey, be positive, fake it till you make it. It's like that's exhausting. But the real positivity, it's like it, I guess most people don't want to be positive, truly positive, because it requires it's a death. That's why I've made the name Born Again Men. It really is a death, and it just realizing in my own experience, these pieces of me dying are very painful, but it's an illusion. The things that are dying are just the weak parts of me, caring what other people think and all that. And like I said, there's enough light in there in my own experience where it doesn't pull me. I see it for what it is. I see how external validation is bullshit. Like I see it, in the same way we're talking about this, right? Be the change you want to see, right? I get that, but it's still not fully in my heart. It's still somewhat intellectual, right? Because we can have this conversation all day, but then when somebody cuts you off in on the street, or somebody who says something to you at the store, those are the moments that truly test. We can say the right things in this podcast all day, but in those moments are truly the test. It's
Right.
not because we get it, right? Oh, well, you don't need external validation. Love is within. We could say all the right things, but in those moments, those are the tests. And
Right.
if I'm honest with myself, I'm still not fully, but it's a death because when those moments come up, there's that awareness, the ability to respond instead of react is growing. So I find
Is
myself
growing. Is
growing,
growing.
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 Yeah,
Okay, so that's progress, right? Because
yeah.
in the past you would have just reacted.
Oh
Now
yeah.
maybe you're pausing and responding.
It's I think about
Uh,
when I was younger driving. Somebody would cut me off. Who the hell are you to cut me? Are you gonna cut me off and get away with it?
yeah,
It became a war. God,
right.
I look back, it was so stupid. But
Yeah. But now,
um
but now you would say, wait a minute, what just happened here? And how am I going to respond? Are you taking
yeah, well
your
it's
time?
I mean
Oh, that's
that
big.
yeah, in that well when it comes to like driving specifically, I look at it like it's like an orchestra, and I'm part of keeping the flow of everything moving, right? You should sometimes you should slow down, sometimes you should speed up, sometimes you should move over, sometimes and it's just I watch it kind of like a dance. We're all dancing. And
Yeah,
when people are just not in the flow, get the hell out of their way. Let them go, and you can increase your speed. People nobody not everybody does the speed limit, right? So it's all flow. It's all flow, right? If you're just, some people are going too slow and they shouldn't be going too slow. You think that's safer, but that's not safer. It's not always safer to drive slower. As someone who is, I drive in Jersey, every time I go into New York, I had to be a completely different driver. I can't be more defensive. I have to be more aggressive in New York because otherwise I'm actually it's more dangerous to be defensive in my experience. You have to keep going. You have to be very quick, sharp. You have to get over. You can't think, oh, do I get over? No, the other car, and people are cutting you off. It's a different experience. So I don't even know where the question was. I don't even know where we're
Then the
going.
other thing too is that you have to keep in mind that how many times you've been the other guy.
Or cutting somebody off.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
cutting off, and you and you were being the one that you're criticizing.
Yeah,
You know?
that's where the kindness comes in. So you have to be kind of kind, but also unapologetic with your truth, as you said.
Yeah. So
Taking it out from a driving standpoint to, a relationship standpoint.
but I think, like I said, if it's practice. It's not going to happen for some people. Maybe it happens just like that. You could switch over and transcend and become awake, and you're a whole new spiritual person. Most people, it's a whole process. So if somebody cuts you off, now that you've learned to observe as opposed to react, step one, and then maybe step two would be, okay, put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, hey, you know what, the guy's racing like crazy. Maybe he's racing to a hospital. So it's a mindset too. It's
Yeah.
not what happens to us, but it's what we think about what happens to us will change the whole way of observing what just happened. So so that by doing this, you're getting closer to becoming that spiritual person where nothing will really bother you. At some point, nothing will really upset you. Nothing can upset you. It's the ego that gets upset. So, but eventually you will get that point. So I think we're kind of impatient, but it's a process, and appreciate our progress along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think patience is a key word there because, I think the more we started this off, right? Day by day kind of thing. And
But
I
the
think,
truth, and but getting back to the truth, there's nothing more important because we're faced with making decisions every single day, every moment we're faced with. And where do we go to make a decision, to make the right decision? We want to,
yeah.
we'll go to a videotape or we'll go to a book. We'll always go to somebody else because we think somebody else has the answer for us.
Mm.
Because eventually you'll find out that nobody has the answer because everybody's trying to figure it out for themselves.
Trust the
Nobody has it,
experts.
huh?
Trust
Right.
the experts.
Yeah, you're the expert. So that's where the real key. If anything comes out of this video, is that trust yourself. You've heard that millions of times. Be yourself. So simplistic, right? But man, that is the key to becoming a real person, a happy, fulfilled person. And how do you get there? You just practice it. You're faced with a challenge almost every minute of your life, and you're afraid to make a mistake. There are no mistakes because the mistakes are just as good as the correct decision because the mistakes set you on the right path. But to do nothing is, man, that's a death. That's a real death. Trust yourself. How many times growing up, man, I
Why don't we trust ourselves?
well, because of conditioning. We come into this world, we're fully equipped, we're perfect. But as we grow up, everybody's telling us how to be, what to do, what to say, how to dress. We never learn, we never develop the ability to be ourselves. We're not encouraged to be ourselves. We're encouraged to be a good Catholic uh, parishioner, a good student, a good son or daughter. Everybody's got this program for us. That's why we're not we're not grown up to really realize our true self. So it's a difficult, you know, it's a difficult definition. What is your true self? Because uh, it's really a spiritual question. But that's really what it is. So it's difficult because you have to fight the elements, you have to fight the conditioning that we're all subject to.
Yeah, then the conditioning it becomes habits,
Yeah.
right? The thoughts become words, the words become actions, the actions become habits, and then once something becomes a habit and that becomes part of who you are, to reprogram that. That's why I've said it's like a death. It's a death because to the extent of all the lies that you believe, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, to start going against that is a death. It's painful,
Yeah.
I think, initially. And it can be extremely painful because people telling you you're something your whole life and now you're going this other way. And that to me is people are afraid of the truth. Remember the movie Liar Liar? I've been bringing this up a lot.
Yes. Yes.
So he still starts speaking the truth, and people are not ready for that. I mean, there's two scenes that come to mind. Is one woman, she's like, what do you think of uh I don't know, she changed something about her appearance. He goes, whatever takes the look off your hair or something. And then he's in the elevator and she's like, everybody here has been really nice. He's like, yeah, because that's because you have big boobs. He's like, well, and like it's just there's this, you know, um there's this balance between it keeps coming. I keep the word of the year is paradox. The truth is so paradoxical. It's complete paradox. But the higher I've grown in truth, the more I see the paradoxes everywhere. The more that I see you can make an argument for one thing, you can make the exact opposite argument, and it's true. And an example would be like, you know, I think the example is love everybody and tell the truth,
Mhm.
because there's hypocrisy within us, and it's only until you live it that those two things are true. In other words, in order to love everybody, you have to tell the truth. If you're not telling the truth, you're not loving everybody.
Mhm.
So and I bring it back to Christ too. They hated me first, so too they will hate you. Because here's a figure who's just started speaking truth. Truth is within you. Truth is within you. God's out there. You have to follow the authority comes from within, and then it goes without.
Mhm.
What I see that is the difference between integrous authority and authority. That's the difference between a boss and a leader. Leader's integrity comes from within. A boss's integrity comes from outside to impose on other people. So he those are the two types of, it's like the tyrant versus, in essence, Christ was, he was, you're going to be a slave to anything in this life. You choose to be a slave to something higher than yourself, or you can be a slave to something that's temporary, like attention or doing things for validation.
Well, how do you know? Like, how does one know, you know, when they're telling their own truth?
See, this is, I'll ask the questions here. Okay.
Mhm.
No, I think I put out a video a while back. This was like the best answer that I got on this. There's two types of feelings. There's emotions, and then there's flow state.
Mhm.
Flow state is love, joy, peace, acceptance, willingness, reason, to steal some of David Hawkins' chart of consciousness I'm looking at. And then the other ones are emotions. Happiness is pretending to be joy. Happiness comes and goes, but it's a different feeling. And I think it's like growing in that truth, you're able to make the distinction. And I think joy is something that comes to you, whereas happiness is something that you seek. And I think this is the idea of seek first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be given to you. But what we do is the opposite. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have the family, the house. I've learned from your experience, right? The idea you go after the white picket fence life, keeping up with the Joneses. You go after the material things first, and then I'll follow God later. I'll search for the truth later. Complete opposite. You
Mm.
search for the truth first. What is true? What is real? And then you surround yourself with real relationships. You have paradox. Something I've been thinking of, like expectations. You should manage expectations with people. What are your expectations of people? Making that clear. But the paradox is at the same time, expect the unexpected, because people are going to let you down all the time. The only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Because if you create all these expectations for other people and they don't live up to them, you end up hating the person. So you have to expect nobody's going to follow your expectations. But at the same time, people, if you're running a business, you expect people to show up for work, right? Because I don't like people who speak in ultimatums. You should have no expectations of anybody. Really? Are you living that? Are people living that? Do you expect your wife to say "I love you," or do you expect her to come in and yell at you every time? Is that an expectation? You okay with that? If you have no expectations, you should be okay with your wife yelling at you and no expectations. So that's that's what I think the difference is to your question. Not that I have the answer. I'm just sharing my experience. It's like, and I really value these conversations more and more as I get older, because the conversations I love having with you is that we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. We
Right.
do, but we're bouncing ideas off, and you're not speaking to me as if you know more than me. But I look up to you because you've had more experience. So I'm learning from you. To me, you're my elder. So, but there's kind of this, what's true? Let's figure it out together each day.
Yeah, that's understanding that we really don't know. And then how, if we don't know about ourselves, how are we expected to know for somebody else? We're always seeking advice from somebody else as if they know for us. No, it's got to come from you. It's custom made. Decisions have to come from you. How many times I always try to do the right thing. I grew up with that mentality, especially with my mom. You know, make sure that you respect the elders, like you say, and make sure that you dress properly. And did you say thank you? Did you say hello? And then and you grow up with all this, and you lose any semblance of who you are, and you're always looking to somebody else.
Well, yeah, it's to inspire the thank you, to inspire morality instead of parroting it based on your expression. That's what I receive. You
Yeah,
say thank you, you do this instead of inspiring the thank yous and inspiring your welcome, like inspiring as we naturally are thankful for people who do good to us, and to be that change, people will do the right thing.
yeah, yeah,
So
that's
you
right.
better say
That's
thank
that's the
you.
key. That's the key. Naturally, if you just let a person be, it's in within our makeup to be kind, to be good, to do the right thing, to be. If you just let us be, the problem is that we want to remake somebody. Our parents are well intended, but they want to remake us into somebody else, somebody that maybe it's like them because of the issues that they've had to deal with, issues of you know self-esteem or whatever. So and they're trying to correct these things through you vicariously through their kids, and they're really being hurtful, not intentionally so, but that's really the challenge. But if you understand that early on, if you understand that parents understand that up front, you can go a long way to helping the child truly become themselves, a person that's passionate about life, to understand how wonderful life can be, and that they're an integral part of everything about it, about life. Wow, that's awesome. That would be awesome. So you got to muddle through. Like I'm 76, I'm still muddling through to try to search and be okay with who I think I am.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's another reason I love these conversations because how many people are willing to have these conversations? Because the keeping up with the Joneses, people want to have the illusion that they're doing better than other people, and you can fool some people. But the more I live, the more I realize that most people are very good at hiding. And I can see in my own experience how I was very good at hiding, you know.
Yeah,
Um, it wasn't fun to talk about porn, but let me tell you, you see how many people are escaping into porn every day. I know I'm not alone. It's like the ego wants to think that, oh, we're separate, nobody else has these struggles, and we have to appear as if we're so great. And again, there's paradoxes on both sides because the other side is too that people want to keep you as a victim. That people just want to live in their problems too.
right.
It becomes a soap opera. And then people just talk about all the problems. Um, because I think when you really that's what was it? Chaz Palmieri, is that his name? And that might be it. He when he said that, when you start going up, because this is something that I really noticed when you start really growing and there's the idea that I think is growing in our culture, at least from the people that I'm surrounded by, is the idea of the win-win. Stephen Covey, you put me on his book, right? The win-win mentality. The ego is not about win-win. The ego is how much can I win, and everybody else is losing around me. That's the ego. Um, or you can say a sick ego. How do I win? Other people are losing. Like the satisfaction of winning at other people's expense. And to grow into the idea of win-win, that the more you win, I want that for you. But our society doesn't really, I don't see it in our society. It's based on what are your grades? How much money do you make? Which those are two indicators, but that's like to the extent it's material world. How much material can you gain? But what is the most important thing? It's your character. It's who are the people that are going to be there for you when no one else is there? How many real friends do you have? That to me is more important than those things. Those other things are important too. You have to make money. You have to. We're in this world. We have to live in it. But how many people can say they have real friends that they can say anything to, and no one will gossip about them? They won't look down on them, and they'll actually give them advice on how to go up and how to get over and share their own experience. How many people? You can say anything, they won't backstab you. How many?
Mm. How many? How many family? How many family members?
They'll tell you what you want to hear. Anybody can do that. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, you can put on a show. How many people can truly be there in your life, are truly invested in you? And you can see it. A great test is when you're doing better than them, maybe financially or whatever. And the other test is when you have nothing, when you have no money, or those low points in your life. Do they not talk to you? Oh, he's crazy, or he's going through this or that. Oh, I heard it. It's like all the gossipy shit. I hate that. Hate that.
But that's why it's again, um, you know, to have friends that have a vested interest in you and your development would mean again to develop who you are, not to take their advice, but to support the your development. That's so important from even like from your own spouse to each other, to help each other become the better version of yourself. who better than your spouse? And if that's not happening, then there's a deficiency there. But a real friend is somebody that's going to be there to support you and help you grow, not to give you advice, not to tell you how to live your life again, but to help you help yourself.
Yeah. Bingo.
Because like Stephen Covey says, man, step one is to become independent persons. You really can't be a good friend to somebody else. You can't have healthy relationships until you become a whole person that is independent and responsible and able to function on themselves. Then they can have interrelationships that are
Yeah,
meaningful.
interdependent.
Interdependent relationships that become meaningful, but you can't get there until you become independent. But there was one of my favorite quotations is from T.S. Eliot, and it's he says, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
Yeah.
So to your point that you made before, look how many times I've made the circle and basically have come to the same place. And I'm coming to the place where I can't figure it out. I'm just here. I'm part of this universe. I'm part of what it is, and I just have to accept it and just let it be. Make my decisions, and the decisions, I just whatever it is, whatever happens, is happens without giving it a lot of energy. And I'll just keep going with that flow, and then you learn to live that way, and you become a person that is in the present. We talk so much about that. But that's where really life is. If we can't be in the present, we're nowhere. We're nowhere. We're not living.
Three things come to mind with that. One is Carl Jung had an idea. I could be off on the exact terminology, but the word, I think it's circumvention, something along those lines. That essentially the way we grow is not like, it's not linear. It's not like, all right, I'm growing. It's more like it's a process of screwing up, and you do this and then you repeat a wrong behavior, and it's all over the place.
Right.
That's how more so we are. And then you arrive through that, like going up against walls and things not working, and you come to find yourself. The other thing that comes to mind is uh there's a quote that says um every man has two lives. The first is when he's born, the second is when he realizes why. The second is the day he finds out why. And the third is again that born again men, with Nicodemus with Christ, where he's like, I have to go back into my mother's womb to be born again. He goes, no, you have to be born again of the spirit. And the spirit is the way of seeing. It's not a feeling. That's the thing that I think is, and I wanted to shift, and the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is men versus women. The idea, huh?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, truth, huh?
Uh-oh.
If we're gonna
Who's
really,
listening? Who's
this is,
listening?
well, part one was saying, hey, speak the truth, right? So now we're gonna speak our truth. I'll speak my truth, and then we'll see what happens. Um, but yeah, the born again, you have to be, you're born of the spirit, and the spirit is the father's love. Father's love is very different than the mother's love. Very different. It's a way of seeing. It's not a way of feeling. The mother's love is very feeling oriented, but you need both of them.
Hmm.
I wanted to read this to you. This is because while we're on that, this is something I put out the other day. So get ready. You know, we're gonna piss some people off. You probably would have pissed me off years ago if I read this. And I want to hear your view. A true woman despises a weak man. A true man despises a strong woman. A true man knows when to tap into weakness. A true woman knows when to tap into strength. It further strengthens that bond. There is no weak without strong. There is no strong without weak. There is no man without woman. There is no woman without man. This is the law of polarity. Since we have forgotten this, we collectively suffer. When this imbalance is not recognized, it leads to authoritarian fathers and devouring mothers. Toxic masculinity and feminism have led us to fight this polarity and fight each other instead of recognizing the beauty of our differences. When we lose our connection to the divine, nature abhors a vacuum and attempts to fill this void with a perceived sense of identity, which is usually validated by others. External validation instead of internal validation perpetuate the lies we believe. So, very poetic, those last two lines, but essentially what I'm saying in that is that when we lose our connection with ourself, then we attach ourselves to an identity, a perceived identity. This is who I am. And then it's validated by other people. So then we think that that's our identity. And then if people start changing how they see that, then that's our whole sense of identity. It's a house of cards. So, but what were your thoughts on that? True woman despises a weak man. True man despises a strong woman. And I attribute it to the yin and the yang, right? A man is the strength. A woman is the weakness. And I use that word because I want people to be triggered. I want people to, weak, what's wrong? What's the opposite of strong? It's weak. You can say fragile, whatever you want to, however you want to word it. But there's times that a woman needs to tap into her strength and be very logical, use her logical mind. And there's times that we need to tap in as men to tap into our emotion. The problem when we become emotional and when a woman becomes strong, we're going against nature. It's fine. People can live however they want to live. But in my experience, when I've lived in my emotions, I've suffered. And when I've been around women, for example, who were able to express their emotions completely, great connection in my experience. What are your thoughts on that?
No. What comes to my mind is that the world has changed so much almost since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I mean, it was almost like an automatic thing that a man was the strong one and the woman was the weaker one. But there wasn't it wasn't a negative. It wasn't a negative for a woman to be described the weaker one. It was just natural. My mom would never be offended if she would say, "Well, you're the weaker one," and she would say, "Yeah, I'm the weaker one, but I take care of the house and I raise the kid, and so if you want to describe me as the weaker one, but I'm weaker in the sense that your father is
Not better than
stronger,
or
huh?
worse, not better than or worse than. It has nothing to
Right,
do with that.
right. It's just naturally he's stronger. He's made differently to protect you and me, and when he's the breadwinner, so he's the protector. He's the provider. There was nothing derogatory about any of this. It was accepted. Today, it's all evolved to where, well, if you know, women see themselves don't want to see themselves as in a weaker position. They want to compete against the man and say, I'm equal to it or not better than. And so we now are in a situation where roles are being switched and the man doesn't know how to operate anymore. And I don't think a woman does either how to operate effectively anymore. And to the detriment to the family. So I think that there's a lot of pressure on men and women um, to become other than themselves, other than their natural selves.
Or on the flip side, to pretend to be that, right? To do masculinity or do femininity. Well, if I, for me, I get muscles, now I'm a man, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
strong. That's
right.
not what I'm speaking about when I say strength and weakness, because I made a video on this. I don't know if you saw it. It takes a lot of courage for a woman to be vulnerable to a man because that man might take advantage. And I think a lot of men did maybe in the past generations, right? Hitting their
Exactly.
wife. And
Yes.
that's not
Yes.
strength to me.
A
I
lot
want to
of
be
it's a lot of that.
very clear what I mean by strength. A strong man to me, because I really liked this idea the first time I heard it. A strong man is submissive to God, right? A set of principles that he doesn't compromise on. He has integrity. He is submissive to Christ. That's the idea. He is submissive. What does that mean? That means that he puts his foundation of following Christ first, not how his wife feels. Because if it's always how wife, well, she's unhappy, so I'm going to compromise my values, then she's gonna resent him deep down because he's not strong. That's how I define as strong, that he can separate his emotions from how he acts. And and that's in my experience, that's what's really strength in the
Well, I think
relationship.
a woman who can be weaker, let's say in
Right.
parentheses, right,
Got you.
is really a strong person. It's very
Correct.
difficult for a woman to be submissive, but it takes a woman of integrity, a woman who knows herself. Again, we talked about independent, a woman that is intrinsically independent and can stand on her own and is secure in herself, that she can be
Yeah.
in that submissive position to be effective to the husband and to be effective to the household. And when you've got that going, and the man also, takes on the position of being strong, which is also a very difficult thing, and to be the leader. Try it, man. That's
Yeah.
not an easy role to take that on. You've got an effective union there that doesn't only help the family, but
Yeah,
it helps
because you can't have
society.
two leaders and two followers.
Yeah,
You have
right.
two leaders, you're gonna be butting heads. Well,
Yeah,
I want to do it this way. I do this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you have today. You have two men. You have a woman that wants to be the man, and the man gets tired of being the man. So he said, you know what? I'll be the woman. So you got the man being the woman and the woman being the man.
Yeah. Or the a happy wife, happy life. She's the boss.
So that
Resentment.
is so dysfunctional. And this is what's happening. I mean, you could see the behaviors right in society. You just go out on Main Street and you take a look at what's happened. You got you got men who are following women. I mean, you just look at the behaviors. If you go to the beach, I just came back from the beach. Typically, the woman is leading the man and the kids onto where they're going to sit on the beach, and the man is carrying the baby, and he's become the submissive one,
Mm.
held by the behaviors. It's incredible. And so there's a feminine. Men have become much more feminine, and and there's some good that comes out of this too. Again, it's a matter of extremes,
Yeah.
and because like you said before, years ago, I think there was a lot of abuse that took place where men took advantage of this leadership
Correct.
role that they had and abused women, unfortunately. And
Well, it's like a pendulum swing, over time. It's like,
yeah,
and I think that's the issue, at least in my own experience with, that's the thing with, again, on both ends. That's where you say, I agree with the courage thing. It takes, you know, for a man, we have to, how many times, because I know you don't know what the hell the solution is, but you have to make a
right,
decision. You have
right,
no idea how you're going to fix
right,
this problem. That
right,
takes guts. And
right,
it also takes guts to have a woman who's like, she's going to follow that,
right.
but if you have enough courage and, you make the decision and you have the willingness to make a mistake, most of the time it works out, right? That's how life works. Um, but yeah, and I think, that's why I also said the yin and the yang. I think there's times that a woman needs to be strong in the relationship. She needs to step up and she needs to lead. There's going to be times. That's the yin and the yang. And there's times you need to be emotional. There's times that you're just going to
Mhm.
break down, you lose a loved one and you break down and you need her to really be your rock, but not the exception is not the rule. And what we're doing as a society is we're making the exception the rule. And I think the same thing. Well, might as well talk about the most controversial topics now, right? Abortion and gun control, all these things that divide people. What we're doing is making the exception the rule. I think for me, I'm pro-life, but does that mean there's never an exception anytime ever? It's all black and white? No. But I think the problem becomes when we make the exception the rule, where we take away the ability to be responsible. That's another life. And you know, again, I'm a hypocrite, right? That's the idea of being a Christian. We've all fallen. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes over and over again. It wasn't until I experienced suffering and pain in my life that I really learned the lesson. You shouldn't have sex with anyone you wouldn't have kids with. How's that for truth? And that's coming from someone who's had sex with people that I wasn't planning on having kids with. But that's the truth. That's the truth. I didn't realize it until, you know, I reap what I sowed. And now I would say that. And I say that with deep compassion for anybody. I hope nobody ever has to make decisions like that. But we can't take away, you know, we want a feel good culture without the consequences of it. It's the yin and the yang, the feeling versus the discipline.
Yeah. But again, we have to celebrate the differences. We have to get back to celebrating the differences. We're going in the wrong direction. We really are. And the pendulum is really swung. The tide is really very high. It's not an easy struggle here to try to get back to
And we're lying to
kind of
people every
norm.
day. So it's okay. That's why I started this conversation where we say it's okay, you know, my truth. My truth versus the truth. And
Yeah,
you have to be able to, that's what you can't, it's, you have to, you know, I really see what it's like to be a father now. Like, you know, when you get closer to God, the Father, you see that
yeah,
you don't want anybody to suffer. The times in
yeah,
my life where I wasn't listening to you, I just,
yeah,
dad, whatever, dad, just leave me alone. And it's like there's that pull where it's like, I'm trying to lead you the right way, but I can't force you, but like I'm here, you know, and it's like that's how I think we should be looking at our fellow human beings, where it's just like we don't want them to go the wrong way. This is the wrong way. But how do
yeah,
you say that to someone who is like, no, I feel good. This is my truth.
yeah. There's another aspect here too that we didn't really touch upon, but I think it comes into play, and that is the role of the man to be the gentleman. You
Mm.
know, there was a time when to be a gentleman was really,
That's the submissive to Christ part.
yeah,
That
right.
that's what it is to be submit. What was
Be a
Christ?
gent-
Was he was a gentle man. He was the
to open
epitome of a gentleman.
to open, you know, when you open the door for a woman
Yeah.
today, the woman you open the door for a woman today so she can get in. Depending on who you open the door for, she may look at you and say, "I can open my own door." Oh, really? So then what does a man do now? So what does a man do now? Doesn't open the door. He doesn't operate anymore. I'll drive the car. You don't have to drive. I feel like driving the car. Okay, so now she's driving the car. What do I do? What? So then, the man loses his ability to operate.
Yep.
So this is what it's come to. So it's very disillusioning. I can understand why so many men have really kind of become silent here and said, you
Mm.
know what, I'm tired of this. Whatever. And so I congratulate you for trying to speak the other side here, speak for the men, speak for the silent ones, try to correct some wrongs here.
What else are we gonna do?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not fun, but you know, it's not interesting. It's not about being. It's what is true. The more the world goes this way, it becomes, I think, each of our responsibility to at least speak. I'm not trying to save the world. I'm just trying to share how I see things. And I found a lot of people. It's something that I've realized. You know, when you say that the tide is really going one way, what I would say, there's a lot of people who see this. It's the silent majority. People see this. People just want to be left alone. They don't want this these ideologies shoved down their throat. Deep down, everybody wants the same thing. It's expressed differently. You might like chocolate, I like vanilla, but deep down, that scale of consciousness I always talk about, that's who we are. I don't care who the hell you are. There's parts of you joy, there's parts of you reason, guilt, shame on the other end, fear. We're the same in that aspect.
yeah,
So that's where my truth and your truth kind of just, it falls apart because it's what is the truth versus how you can really connect with people. And I think you've said it over the years too, right? Like the idea of two ears to listen. when you're the observer, instead of speaking, you have two ears to listen twice as much as you speak.
Right.
I know that's not the case when we start talking because I know that you're listening. Like I just get fired up and I just talk, 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 talk. We get off the phone. You always say, "All right, I'm going to sleep now." But I love talking about this with you because I get I get fired up with it, and ideas kind of flow with me when I know I'm talking with someone who is truly listening or
Well,
hearing.
we have these talks, and you say, well, why are we having these talks? Because we're not happy with what we're seeing out there. Because look at what's happening to families. The families are falling apart. Divorce levels way up, and it has been. You can argue many different things about the divorce, but when you have uh, both spouses working full time, chasing a career, and then trying to raise a family at the same time, where very little time is given to nurturing a child who needs both the mother and the father. Uh, and then the child grows up with deficiencies, I would say, because their needs were not attended to early on. So, like, so what are we really trying to accomplish here? You get married, you say, okay, we're going to get married, we're going to have a family, and this is going to be our purpose for a while. And then we say that's our purpose, and that's the most important thing that we will share as a couple is to build this family. And then we go on and we go our separate ways. Why why would you get married then? Why would you just and say you're going to have a family and then not attend to that responsibility? So these are the consequences, I think, that we see in society, with broken homes
Well,
and
as you,
broken.
someone who went through divorce, what advice would you give to other men, and also myself, right, to really make sure that that obviously you can't guarantee anything, right? But what piece of advice would you give to people who are looking to build that foundation? And
I would say the most important thing is that each of you have to be mature adults. And again,
what advice would you give to the men specifically as
um,
the leaders?
to be a confident, independent, responsible person that could stand on his own, that could function on his own and take care of his own responsibilities. To be that person, to me, is the ultimate man. To take care of whatever responsibilities he's been given in his life. If and then if he marries somebody with equal capability and innate ability, that's going to make a pretty effective team with the same common goal. That's going to be a pretty effective team, and the outcome is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think that goal is very most important is values.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
pretty awesome outcome. And when you think about it, what can be more important than raising a family, raising children to become who they are? They can make a contribution, get compassion. They can become compassionate, caring human beings that can make a real difference in this world. What can be more important than that?
Well, our society says feeling good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So get that drug because a lot of pain going on here, so we cover it up with all sorts of drugs, and instead of just living a fulfilled life, it's right in front of you. You don't need the drugs then.
Yeah, there was David Hawkins right here. Shout out to David Hawkins. Letting go. This book right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
He said the best thing. I listened to him on a video, and he goes, "When you do drugs or alcohol, anything that is feeling good, it puts you into that state of flow." And he basically says, "You want in that moment of the alcohol or the drugs or whatever, you get it. You get it instantly. You get the meaning of life, as you said. Just be, because that's what people are doing on drugs or alcohol or whatever it is sex addiction, whatever the addiction is. they're in the flow. They're free,
Yeah,
but they short circuited it to get there. But in that experience, you could literally, work. You could work. You could do. You can reading self help books. You can read all these books. You can read this entire shelf of books, and then you do drugs one time or alcohol one time. You got it. So all these books, because what we want is the experience. I can read books all day, but we want the experience. So you get the experience. David Hawkins goes, "You'd be stupid not to do it again."
yeah. The problem is then you got to do it again and again. You can't get enough of what you don't want. Somebody
What I
said,
love about that is that he's giving the devil its due. Whereas our society, we must fight addiction. We must fight that. And we do, but it's a different type of fighting. The fighting comes from the awareness of seeing it for what it is and seeing
it,
that, he attributes it to the clouds. There's clouds, and those clouds represent our false belief systems, our negative thoughts, all that. And the sun is always shining. When we do the drugs, it takes away the clouds. You go, oh, the sun, this is it. But the mind mistakes the drugs for the sun. All it does is it removes the clouds. So the spiritual path is to remove the clouds one by one, and that's painful. The relationships you have that are false in your life, the lies that you've told yourself, the negative, all the negativity. It's a lot of deep work. As you said at the beginning of this podcast, it's day by day. It's not easy because the day by day, you're gonna have great days, you're on fire, and then I tell you, those ego, for you, fibromyalgia, that it stirs up. The thoughts come in. Yeah, you're not good enough. You can't do it. You're not gonna make it. Yeah, you're doing this for this. You're doing it for that. All the I know, we all, both of us know all about the talk, right? The thinking mind wants to drag your ass down.
well, the
So,
addiction is numbing the pain, you know. Uh,
mhm.
so we all want to feel good. The trick is then to replace the addiction with a better drug called fulfillment,
Mm.
called purpose, called flow, passion
Well,
in your life.
that's the truth.
That's what the soul is seeking. Then you don't need drugs anymore.
Yeah.
And if you go, you go to AA meetings and all sorts of these addiction meetings, basically that's what they try to help you get to is, get to a place where you can let go and let God and replace the alcohol or the addiction with something that is um, with a meaningful life, a fulfilling life, something that fills you, so that you don't need this band-aid anymore.
I got one more question for you, and I agree. I agree with that. The key is having something greater. But I think in the depths of the negativity, it's hard to come up with those answers. So we default to that because we just want to feel good. Speaking of my own experience, we just want to feel good because shit, it feels good. But you transmute that pain, transcend that pain. It's a lot harder, but it's a lot more rewarding because no one can take it away from you.
Yeah,
Somebody
right,
can take away the drug. Somebody can take away the person that makes you feel good, but nobody can take away your ability to see the world as it is, to see heaven without
right.
anything. You earned it. But um, I wanted to also ask because you gave good advice for men, to prevent divorce, sharing your own experience. And the other thing I wanted to dive into is one of the negative things is like, Mike, your 30s, it's too late, right? There's all these different lies that the devil will tell us.
Yeah,
You shouldn't do. Look at your life. You wasted 15 years watching porn. Who the hell's going to listen to you? Are you kidding me? What? You're a loser. What the mind tells. So rather than running, let's face it, right? And in the same way, I'm sure you had similar thoughts, right? When uh you were in the midst of the divorce, you were going back to school. Did your mind tell you you're in your 50s, right? You were 50s, right?
yeah,
You're gonna go back to school? What are you kidding me? Did you have those thoughts? Like, did you have any negative thoughts? Say you're too old to do this. Was there pushback when you decided? Because here you are, you had a career your whole life, right? Doing this the 9 to 5, you're busting your ass, you're doing things that you hate, and now you shift to going into social work. what was the mind like during that, and how, what advice would you tell people who are looking to make a change, who are older, 30s, 40s, you in your 50s, that it's never too late kind of message? There it is.
You that
Yeah, raise it up.
that was the
Raise it up.
mindset.
It
Is
was a little
really
low. Higher. Can't say. You have to put it up by your face. You have to put it up by your face. I can't see it still. There you go. Yeah, there it is. Yep.
the mindset was yeah, I struggled with that. I questioned myself, 50s, what the heck? And do I really want to start all over? And well, I was 22 when I got married. When we got married, I was 22, and so and it was a struggle. It was a lot of ups and downs, as you would expect in any marriage, ups and downs, and young, immature, and got into I didn't really know what kind of work to do, and I got mismatched with different jobs, and really wasn't very happy with the work that I did, and struggled so much, and so it was a hard road, as many men have gone through and are going through, and I reached a point in my life where things were just not working, and it was time, I guess, for both of us to start fresh, start new, start a new life, because it just wasn't working. And I questioned myself, and I I I finally came to the conclusion, with the help I had to go to. I went for therapy. I was put on. With the help of some medications, I was able to get to a more stable place emotionally, and I was able to make some decisions along the way, which included, hey, how about maybe going back and going back to school and see if there was a different field that was more suitable for me. And I tried, and I took a course in counseling, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go for this, and I did, and I stayed with it, and I got my master's in counseling, and it was one of the most fulfilling experiences in my life. And number one, to be in a field that you really love is awesome, because it's not that, when you do the work, it's not work anymore. It's a passion. It's joy filled. And then I didn't. The pay was like, well, much less than I was paid corporate, but well worth it. And so yeah, I was in the mid 50s, and I went back to school. I was with young kids. I was, you could just picture, young kids going to the school, but they welcomed me, and I made friends with them and the professors, and it's such an exciting time for me.
Mm.
And I never felt that I was too old. I never felt
Wow.
that it was over. It was a brand new life and a brand new beginning, and it's
So
awesome.
it's
So
more exciting for you.
much more exciting, much more fulfilling. It was much more suitable for me, given my personality and my temperament and all that. So yeah, it's never too late. Uh, it's late when it's too late. So don't make it too late. Start today. That's all it is. Decision. It was one decision. Decisions was like that. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a class, and I made a phone call to the college, and I said I want to enroll in that class, and I didn't. I was very fortunate.
Oh, and can you share the story too? Because I didn't you like not do good on your test? You had a test that you took, and then you're
Yeah,
like,
I took it
yeah,
right. I was,
share
it was
that.
an entrance exam, and I did very poorly. I had my bachelor's degree, which is a requirement, but then I had to pass this test, and I did very poorly on it. I think I got like a 20 or something. And uh, after the results came in, I had to sit with the chairwoman, and she said, "We got a problem." I said, "You did terrible on your exam." I says, "Well, yeah, I know. I really don't do well on exams, but I'll tell you one thing." I said, if you give me a chance, I'll prove my worth to you." And she said, okay, I believe that. And I did. And I went and I straight A's every class, every subject that I took, straight A's right across the board. And I remember her giving me a pat on the back for that. Not much of a big pat, but maybe she remembered. I don't even know if she remembered, but I'd like to think that she did. So yeah, it was a great experience, and that's what life is. Man, go for it. Just don't sit back and say, "Oh, it's too late," or
Yeah, well, the mind would
I'm not.
attack somebody and say, "Oh, well, I did horrible in the entrance exams," but you said, "No, and you made it a count to, you know, because it's so easy to say, "Oh, I did bad on tests, now it's all over." Because the
Yeah,
mind could talk, somebody else could just talk, "Oh,
yeah,
I did bad on the test. I'm not even going to meet with the chairwoman. I'm not going to meet with her at all." And talk themselves out of it. But you're like, no, I'm gonna go all in. I'm
yeah.
gonna.
So I made it happen, and right. So you're right. It's a mindset. Get that mindset, boy, and you can do anything. Really can. And it starts today. You don't have to wait for tomorrow. Today, make it happen today. You're worth it.
That's a good place to stop. Dad, thanks for joining me as always.
Okay.
Always appreciate these combos.
Yeah. Pleasure. Good talking to you.